Penny Bragg here with Joe and Michelle Williams. You know we love you dearly. We've traveled together.
Absolutely.
We've served in the Ministry of Reconciliation together. We've shared so much together. We're working on a new book together. But here today we're talking about Marriage 911 and the Marriage 911 God's Way ministry as well. So let me start there with the ministry. Just tell me briefly a little overview of the Marriage 911 God's Way ministry. Joe?
Well, first of all, Penny, we're happy to be here, and we're happy that you're talking to us, and I want to thank anybody that might see this video. I want to thank them for choosing the ministry of Marriage 911 God's Way to work with. And a little bit of the overview, it started many years ago with Michelle and I going through the marriage problems like everybody else goes through. And God brought us to a place where, like it says in Corinthians, you know, take what we've been comforted by God with and comfort other people. And that's the bottom line, the basic principles of this ministry.
Well, one of the unique things about the ministry is you really help those spouses who have an unwilling spouse, right? It may be separated, they may still be under the same roof. You may not know all the details, but oftentimes in a marriage, right, Michelle? I mean, one spouse is in and one spouse is out.
The actual workbook that we that is the most widely used in our ministry, and it's been translated and is used all over the country and in other countries as well, is called Marriage 911 First Response. Originally it was called Reconciling God's Way. And the way that that came about was that Joe and I had been separated for 2 years from 1987 to 1989. And what I ended up doing was interviewing him. When we went back together, we had so many people saying, how did you guys get back together? How did you guys make this work? And so I interviewed him, and I said, what did you do during the 2 years that you think played into our reconciliation? And I made a list of all the things he told me. And then I added to that list, and we ended up with 27 things that we felt played into us going back together that had nothing to do with a couples type thing at all.
It was just individually with God.
We did these things individually.
And we talk about them as tools. What we learned, and then she wrote into the workbook that these are some of the tools that we learned to bring it up to date, that you can use to, like, you have tools to fix your car, you have tools to fix your plumbing. Well, these are tools that might help you fix your relationship.
And so we put it into a workbook format, and we ended up with 12 weeks, and we started doing a class at our church based on the 27 tools that we use to reconcile. And one thing led to another, and pretty soon it just grew and went all over everywhere.
Well, and the unique thing about the class structure, and we're going to talk a little bit more specifically, because some of the people watching this video are getting ready to start their first Marriage 911 class. But when you lead the class, the men sit with men and women sit with women. So even if a spouse isn't there, you've told me before, I believe, that sometimes people don't know. Michelle,
we don't know until the very end. On the 12th week, we give out certificates, and I hand out the women's certificates, and Joe hands out the men, or sometimes our team members will do that. And it's so cool because we will, when we're putting the certificates together, we'll see the name of the guy, the name of the gal. We realize they're both there together because we don't know that in the beginning. And then at the end, when they come up to get their certificate, I always think, oh, he was married to her? Because, you know, I see them sitting on opposite sides.
Sometimes
it's really
it's a
great.
Surprise to find out that they're there, and not with the men not working with the women. It helps us not get involved or take sides. And you know, the side that we want to be on, of course, is God's side. I have guys ask me all the time, and if they suggest that I'm taking a side, I always tell them, no, I'm taking God's side. You know.
Well, the wonderful thing about this workbook and the Marriage 911 class, you know, it's not a program. It's really a ministry of the Holy Spirit, of God. And the tools are so connect the participants to the Lord. So in the first section of your workbook, it's called Where's Your Focus? And so what would you say about that section, Joe, that is so important as a person begins this journey I know in the workbook it talks about unmet needs and selfless behavior. To a person just beginning this journey, what does that first section in the workbook do?
Well, I believe it should start out as a choice. When we were separated, I made a choice, and of course I made a choice to go to this book called the Bible and start reading it and studying it. And if one of the things I can get together with the guys and let them know that it's a choice, you can either do it or not. And you can choose to read, and the first thing we start out with on your focus is focus here in the Word and read a proverb a day. That's one of the first tools. And as you start doing that, you'll see some changes. And there'll be some supernatural things, I think, that will happen when God starts taking control.
Well, and I can imagine that the way the workbook is set up, Michelle, that you get out of it what you put into it, right? There's homework and there's, would you speak to that for just a minute? How important is that?
To the person watching this right now, and maybe you're struggling, maybe you think, I've tried everything, nothing worked. Give this a try. I can't explain it other than it's supernatural. We hear from churches and leaders all over the country and in Canada that tell us that something begins to happen at about week 5 and week 6. And the interesting thing is that's when you're going to be tempted to give up. It's right around that time. You are in a supernatural battle right now that you don't understand. But trust me on that. Just hang in there, do it, do your homework. We start out very simple in the first 4 weeks of the workbook, and all we're doing is helping you to shift your focus from your crisis, from your crisis to Christ.
Well, and along with the workbook, you have a couple other resources that just really pair up nicely. One of those is your Yes book. Right? And then you've got the Separated and Waiting. Can you talk about those additional resources and how important they are as well?
Well, we took the information, a lot of information, and we interviewed people that have come through the ministry and that helped us in the ministry, and we put together a book called Yes, Your Marriage Can Be Saved, and actually focused on the family, helped publish the book, and it came out several years ago, and the stories are there, and that's something that actually goes along with our workbook quite well. And people like to hear stories of other people because they've been there and done that. And some people feel really alone when they come into the class. Like if a man will come in by himself because his wife won't, or a woman will come in because his husband won't. And the main part of the course is designed with a thought pattern that we want to work with the ones that are still living. I was trained, by the Homeland Defense Department people in the fire department, that when you go into a crash site and if there's a big crash like a bus and you carry a pin with you and somebody's not alive, you put a D on their forehead and you walk to the ones that are. And what that does, it helps other people that come along and help. They walk by the person that doesn't want to be involved because they don't want any of this. But we're going to work with the people that are alive, the people that want their marriage to work, and that's basically how simple it's designed to help.
And I'm sure, Michelle, you've seen marriages turn around because one spouse has decided to pursue God instead of pursuing the marriage or the spouse or the reconciliation. Would you say that's true?
I had the funniest thing that happened was I got a call from a lady that lived in another state that was going through the Marriage 911 workbook. I think it was Reconciling God's Way at the time. It was several years ago. And she said, my ex-husband came over the other day to bring back our daughter, and he just started hanging around. And I said, "Are you going to leave or what?" And he said, "Well, yeah." He said, I'm just kind of having a hard time understanding why I left in the first place." She said, and she got the biggest kick out of that. She couldn't wait to call me and tell me, because she said, "I've been doing the workbook with my support partner," because that's how we have it set up. And she said, "With my support partner and I are going through all the tools together, and my support partner commented that I had really changed over the weeks." And she said, "I couldn't see it. But when my husband said that to me, I thought about what my support partner said." So another thing about the workbook, I encourage whoever's watching this, get a support partner. The workbook has a support partner handbook that goes with
That's
it.
right.
Don't miss that piece. It is so powerful.
That's right.
You get double the help that way.
Yeah.
If you're going through a class, you get help. If you're going through just with a support partner, that's helpful. But if you're going in, if your church does have a class, and we kind of hope the churches take up this mission, and it really takes a lot of pressure off the pastor trying to do everything.
Sure,
You put a team together, and it also gives people a chance to develop themselves and help other people, and people have a desire to do that.
Well, two last pieces before we close this section. One would be that the materials that we're talking about are all available online. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Right.
I noticed you also offer bulk discounts and things like that to make the, to get the materials into the hands of those that need it. Is that
Right. They're available on Amazon. They're also available on our website at marriage911godsway.com. And we have recently been blessed with the opportunity to create bulk discounts. So if you're watching this and you're thinking about doing a class in your home or in the community or in your church, you can, if you order 6 or more workbooks, it's like a 30% discount.
Oh, wow.
So it's a
That's a good
great,
discount.
yeah, we really want, it's never about the money. I mean, I
Yeah.
wish we could do everything free.
Right.
But we never want that to be something that is stopping anybody
Okay.
from going through the material.
Well, let's close with this. I know that you guys get excited when a new Marriage 911 class is starting because you have seen God work for years
Yes.
through these classes. But there might be somebody watching this video today that is a little nervous. They're sitting in class as the participant. Their spouse might be there, might not be there. A lot of anxiety because a marriage in crisis is so emotionally volatile.
Yes.
There's so much that's gone on. So there might be some nerves out there. What would you say to just encourage a person to get started with the class?
Well, first of all, most of our material is done through churches, so we obviously go to pray about it. If you haven't prayed, it's real simple. Just say, God, help me. Peter stepped out of the boat. He started sinking, and he was one of God's guys, and the first thing he said when he started sinking was, Lord, save me.
Yes.
So the first thing you want to do in your life is say, Lord, save me. Save my marriage, and see what happens.
I would also say make a commitment. It's 12 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, what have you got to lose? You've got everything to gain. You've got nothing to lose. Give it 12 weeks. If you are thinking of getting a divorce, if your spouse has told you that he or she doesn't love you anymore, don't give up. In fact, Penny, you guys were divorced 11 years and remarried, and your story is in chapter 3 of Yes, Your Marriage Can Be Saved. So don't give up. With God, anything is possible.
Yeah.
So give us 12 weeks with you. Reach out to us. We've got a team of first responders across the nation that will talk to you on the phone at any time. We're always available. In fact, our cell phone numbers are on our website.
Yeah.
We are not hard to get a hold of at all.
And I always say it's okay for the guys to call me.
And the
And
women
I'll
call
talk
me.
with them.
We do keep it separate. I deal with the women, Joe deals with the men.
And Michelle, can you give that website one more?
Yes, it is marriage911godsway.com.
All right, well, we'll wrap up this section, and then we'll talk a little bit more as the weeks progress and the workbook, continues to lead. But thank you for being here.
We want to thank
This is
you
awesome.
for doing the interview and being part of our team.
Thank you.
Thanks.